Welcome to Reputation Revolution. This is the podcast where we help individuals like you to establish your voice in the marketplace, enhance the credibility of that voice, extend the reach of your story and your message, and finally, extract value from your efforts in building a meaningful personal brand that's both recognized and respected. Now, on with the show.
Alrighty, we're here live streaming this episode of the Reputation Revolution podcast. My name is Trevor Young, and with me is my partner in every fortnight. He joins us here on the show, Brendan Keogh.
Great to be here, Trevor.
We come together every fortnight and we recap the previous show, which is an interview that I've done with an expert, a thought leader, a case study, someone who's doing stuff really well in professional personal branding and building out an audience and getting a fair bit of attention online. In this case, the current episode that's up, 236, is with Joyce Ong from Tax Nuggets Academy. That's who I interviewed and basically heard her story, which we're just about to talk about now. And what the idea here is that Brendan and I recap that interview. We look at the insights, the ideas and the hooks that came out of that, and what are some actionable items that people can take away and use as well. So Brendan, Joyce was a fun interview. She's a startup entrepreneur. She's about a year and a half in business, and she runs a digital training academy for small business accountants. It's called Tax Nuggets Academy, and it's all about small bite-sized video tips and trainings, and it's a subscription-based business. Why I got Joyce on the podcast is she is fantastic on LinkedIn. And when we talk about authenticity and transparency and showing your personality, and it's one thing to tell people to do it and to loosen up a bit but when you see it in action, that's what I wanted to uncover. And Joyce does this in spades. So you've heard the interview. What were your thoughts, top line, about what Joyce had to say about her liberated on LinkedIn? She was very liberated after moving from the Australian Tax Office as a specialist there, a tax specialist, to running her own business, a very big jump, a big reinvention, and she felt liberated when she went onto LinkedIn without being an employee.
2 words: radical transparency.
Radical transparency. That's it.
Look, I know. I believe Joyce was more talking about that from her business operations in terms of revealing revenue and exactly where they're at in financials. But there's no doubt that it equally applies to her approach to posting. And you mentioned transparency, but she's just so open. And it was a really refreshing and a good reminder for someone like me, perhaps, who hasn't. You're often thinking about the reasons why you shouldn't be posting rather than the positives, and be just the freedom that she operates within. As you said, she moved away from the tax office. She's now liberated, and she has this radical transparency mantra, which flows through to the posts in terms of, as you touched in the interview, where you'll see the beautiful visual of the video shot, but she'll also show you behind the scenes where there's towels dampening things and the pegs are holding this up. I just said it is a liberating approach, and it was inspiring, something I'll definitely take away. That approach to, there's no good or bad, posting good and bad stories. So just that openness, and antithesis to the traditional corporate view that we have, isn't it, of perfectly polished brand, everything's in alignment and every I is dotted. This is very free. Not reckless, but just raw, more open and honest. So that was the biggest thing that I took, and the fun that Joyce is able to have based off that. There's no kind of right or wrong thing to do. It's just about putting her thoughts out there with confidence and fun.
Yeah, and so let's break it into two parts. The radical transparency, as you mentioned, and that's a phrase that Joyce used, used in the interview, and it's her mantra. And that's basically radical transparency in terms of her taking people behind the scenes of her business, wins and losses, how's she doing this month, how's she doing, what her plans are moving forward. So she works. A reason for doing this too is, there is method to the, if you want to call it madness, of giving out all your figures, because she's received some pre-seed funding from a venture capital firm. She's bringing on collaborators, and this is a reason why she is quite open with her financials, is that because she has collaborators, they've got a stake in the pie as well. They share some of the spoils, and so there's no point hiding anything. And because you're always trying to recruit, yes, she wants subscribers who are small business accountants and tax advisors. And she wants them because they're the people she's training. But her other audience is actual collaborators. And so a lot of what she does, she wants to work with the people who want to work with her. And if they like her approach, they like her openness and her transparency, then they're going to be more likely to maybe take a punt on collaborating with her and then becoming, trainers as part of her academy.
And even more important, to post with honesty and authenticity, that word, because when people meet you in real life, you want that. You don't want to disconnect, and so
no, that's right.
If that's in alignment, what you see is what you get. When they see you in person, then it just fast tracks that trust and that willingness to do things together. So, yes, you talked about her finding business partners, so it's not even just clients. And the venture capital seed funding, and you kind of asked, are they okay with it? Well, you'd hope so, because they know what they're getting. They know it's probably what attracted them to her in the first place. So they'd be more upset if she changed that. So it's just that open honesty. It makes your strategizing so much easier. You just instantly kind of know what your approach is. So it just becomes about execution then. So it really simplifies things. I really like that. Well, a fascinating point that she did make was about she only can we talk about personal and business brand? Because we can. Well,
that comes into it because she has a LinkedIn company page, but all her good content is on her personal page. And there was that grappling that, she'd love it to be building the business brand, but knows that it's the personal brand that builds the business brand. And we've covered this, in this season 6 of the podcast. It's a common thread now, isn't it?
It just really articulated well. It boils down to that. The personal brand builds the business brand. You don't have one or the other, but personal brand is the key driver. And so her personal. No one goes to her business page unless she's posted on her personal page. So it feeds that. But the real clincher and something was a really valuable kind of tool or filter, however you might want to call it, is she only posts about a business element. So while she's on her personal brand, she's open and she's an open book. And as we've talked in other episodes and a common theme of your podcast about we're sharing more of ourselves, our complete selves on LinkedIn. She only posts related to business, and she will often pull out of what she calls ego posts. If it's flippant or frivolous, it's got to have a business tie-in. And I found that really interesting. And not to say it's always selling or pushing, even mentioning her business, but there's an intent, there's a business overarching business emphasis, whether it's an example, not that she's done, but you could be at the beach, but it's about, I've just landed this deal. You've got to, you're only posting if it's tying into some relevance of your business world. So I found that really, really interesting and a great reminder for me in particular of what is acceptable or when to post, when not to post, because another part, she's talked about quality, not quantity, and quality is a function of just as much what you don't post that isn't appropriate. So to know that she's vetting herself, even though she's very open and open book and happy to talk about anything, she vet herself about, no, this is It's an ego. It's just about me talking about myself, or it's frivolous. So that was really, really important and practical tip for everyone.
Yeah, she's bringing people along for the journey. And I think that, because this is such an issue at the moment, is that, the critics of LinkedIn will say that people, and it's probably as a result of the pandemic, but they've got a lot looser, and it's now, is it too much like Facebook? And, some people do overshare and go overboard and make it too personal. And, but, as Ashley Foss, another recent interview subject here on the podcast, she creates, it's business type, talks about teams and everything, but she can draw in fitness, and she can talk in acting, and you can bring your personality and the personal side of you, but where there's a tie-in, how do you tie that back to something that's kind of business and professional and all of that? And that's probably the key. That's the key. And how Joyce does that is that she's quite out there with a lot of her posts. And even if she does a video where she's singing, and she's created lyrics around, end of financial year or something like that. So there's always a tie-in back to the business, but it's not in your face. And that, I think she's got the balance quite right. I think it's a really nice balance. And what she's doing is taking us behind the scenes and the journey. I'm not an accountant. I'm not going to be a client, but I'm here championing her because I look at her stuff because I think it's that good.
Yeah. It was just, it's so inspiring, and, to see that openness and focus, is where she really gets, a cut through to her audience. But as you pointed out during that it's not necessarily, while she's focused on accountants as her end clients, they're not always going to be your biggest fans, or they're not always who you're talking to. Sometimes it's people will never be a client who are going to promote you, share you, maximize your reach. So, you're smart enough. She's focused on her end audience, but also accommodating people who just appreciate what she's got to say. And, it's just like that. She brings her personality to the table, so that but on point. And so that when people do meet her, it's just that beautiful, it's an instant correlation to what she's like as a person, because what you see is what you get.
Yeah, so I said I said at the outset, there was the kind of like, there's two parts to it. There's the radical transparency, and that is she's an open book with her business and the struggles and the wins, and it's not a highly curated like an Instagram influencer that only shows the good stuff. And a lot of people on LinkedIn, hey, we've won this award, we've done this, aren't we good? She shares the good and the bad. So that's that business transparency side of things. But the other part of what she does, and where it's really working, and she's very unique, is that she brings her personality to the content, to the words, her unique perspective on things, her videos, her dancing videos, all of that sort of stuff. It's the personality. Now, I'm not suggesting at all that people have to go out and start dancing, or, creating memes around themselves or whatever it is. It's not about that. What it is about doing what's comfortable for you, but letting go and liberating yourself a little bit, showing a bit of, taking off a couple of layers. You don't have to take off all the layers, and show a bit of that human side of who you are and what you do, rather than having everything word perfect all the time. And particularly on videos and that sort of stuff, have a bit of fun. And it works because her following is growing, and she gets so many good comments, and I just think she's a breath of fresh air on LinkedIn. So I urge people to actually just go and have a look at what Joyce does. Now, whether you like it or agree with it, that's up to you. All I'm saying is that, we hear all the time authenticity, show your personality, but so very few people do. So when you do see it, I like to highlight that and say, well, this is what that looks like. Now, if that's 10 out of 10, you might want to be 4 out of 10. But it's just that we encourage a little bit more of that, a little bit more personal side of stuff.
You don't want to try and copy Joyce. She's naturally like this. She's a natural extrovert and so good at it. And, we're highlighting it, as you say, a very high bar example. But the lesson there for everyone is that, to not worry so much about the script or what I should be posting or how I should sound. And for there's someone out there for everyone. Whatever your style is, someone will resonate with that. They might not like the over the top flashy thing. They want something more serious, so just it's much more about be yourself.
Yeah.
Everyone else is taken. So that was great. Now we do need to address the dark side of radical transparency, which is negative comments. That was a really interesting aspect too, and someone who is an inspiring, ongoing poster. It's a reason to hold back. So that fear of saying the wrong thing. So to hear her talk about it openly, it was really powerful. And
she mostly, just for context, Joyce mostly gets good positive comments. She did get a bad one or a negative one, and she had to take it on board. And she was quite open about it. It threw her because this person who did the negative comment wasn't being a troll. They were actually quite a leader in her industry, and it just made her do a double take. And I, again, urge people to have a listen to that interview. This is the previous one to this one, and just to hear how she handled that, and how she had to get over it.
And that was the response of like, no, I won't delete it. I'll own it. I'll learn from it. It wasn't. We don't know the specifics, but the overall essence of it was that there will be the odd mistake. And again, that's the radical transparency. That's the openness and the good and the bad. And I've just been pondering about it for myself. It's not a bad mantra for. I wouldn't say life totally, but just that openness and honesty could get you in trouble occasionally. But overall, as a philosophy, it's not a bad way to go, and definitely for your socials in terms of perhaps some people like me might need that bar to hold ourselves to kind of remember that no, this is what it's about. So don't be fearful or don't worry. Just you have to put it out there. Another thing that came through, which is a common thread with all of your interviews, Trevor, is learn by doing. Do action. I think that's probably the most common thread throughout this is your guests talking about action, taking action, doing, and kind of learning from that or refining afterwards. But without that initial action, you won't get anywhere. And that's why I like Joyce's simplicity. With LinkedIn, her primary focus and her video component. She just own that base level channel, and from there she's able to launch into her retargeting with Facebook and lead magnets and the like. You got that base to build on. So and it's a lot easier if for people to build that profile on own one platform and to go from there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is she mentioned about using LinkedIn paid ads and getting really good results from that, and then being able to reach a broader audience and then retarget those people through other means. And it's just a classic digital marketing play. And but you've got to build that brand first. You've got to have that point of difference. And that's she's now her business is getting a little bit more mature. She's now having to go a bit heavier with the digital marketing, but still, the dividends that she's already got from taking people along for the journey, building the company in public, attracting attention for all the right reasons, building an audience, very LinkedIn heavy, because that's where her audience is, and then generating business from that. But now it gets a bit more serious. She's got some, as we said, some pre-seed funding. So that allows her to invest more in the company, and she's now looking for a digital marketing manager. So if anyone's interested out there, if it's not filled, check out Joyce, and there might be a gig in it for you. And how the back end machine is starting to work. So you're right. She's put the foundations in first. A lot of people would probably just go straight to the digital marketing and start spending money, but everything else she's done it off sweat equity.
And overcomplicated initially. You're right. Trying to have all of the strategies ready, but just it's a long game, and own one and be comfortable there, and then you can just build off, shoot off from there. The other part that was interesting, one of the other parts that was interesting was She asked you, she got a bit of free advice during the interview, asking you about doing a podcast, etc. So that was great, and which is another theme that we've talked about, the repurposing. So I thought that was really interesting, and I thought you made some good points around that.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's certainly, because she wants people to be learning, and people learn in different ways. And some people, like taking information in audio. Some would rather read it, and others would much prefer video. So I think, that you've got to go where the fish are, and try and get your content out in as many different ways, formats, I suppose, modalities, as they say.
When she's done the thought leadership in the one format video, brilliant. It just enables you to break that up into so many other ways, and rope in other people to do that. Don't try and do it all yourself. There's subject matter experts on these different platforms. Bring in other people to help you disseminate the message in different repackage in different formats that are suitable for different members of your network. So
100%. So just rounding up, Brendan. So we've been talking about the interview I did, which was 236, and this is 237, I think, if I got that bit right, of my interview with Joyce Ong from the Tax Nuggets Academy. And the title of that is Liberated on LinkedIn, How Joyce Ong Uses Transparency and Fun to Cut Through the Noise. So it is a case study. It was her story. Lots of fun to listen to. She's a card. She's fun. And was very open and transparent, of course, in the interview, like she is on LinkedIn. So just rounding up, I think the takeaways for me and what people can now do, I think number one, check Joyce out, follow her on LinkedIn. So it's Tax Nuggets Academy, and is her business, but she's got the company page, but her personal one is where all of her great content is. Check it out, follow her. Look at some of the stuff she's doing. Not saying try and be her. The key message is show a bit of yourself, however much that is. That's up to you. There's the transparency stuff, which is being open and being a bit more of an open book. That's one part. The second part is having a bit of fun and getting creative. And her stuff is creative. So there's two parts to that. So if you take action on one of those parts, and it's probably more around the personality side of things. The radical transparency is a more difficult concept to dig your teeth into.
But I think to round out, having fun, that was the overarching kind of message too. If you can have fun doing this, that's when it's you get longevity, and you're happy to show up all the time. So whatever that means for you, however you can structure your message and posts and strategy that works for you, is fun for you. So you're not grinding against your nature. So try and make it as authentic to yourself, and that's when you will have you'll get some traction and enjoy it. That's what we really want you to be able to do.
So this episode is 237. We're recapping the Joyce Ong interview. It will be audio only on the Reputation Revolution podcast, but we're live streaming here in video on LinkedIn and Facebook, facebook.com/PR Warrior. Come and join us there. And also my Twitter handle is @TrevorYoung. We do this every second Friday now around about lunchtime. So Brendan, next week's interview will be going up. This is next week's on the podcast. I don't want to get confused there. The next episode, though, we're going to go with is with Beck Sands, who's a Sydney-based personal branding and thought leader coach and consultant, and we had a really good conversation. So we'll be back in a fortnight to extrapolate out on that, and there was lots of really good lessons and insights from my chat with Beck as well.
Thank you, listeners. Great to see you again, Trev, as always.
Okay. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
The reputation economy is here. The world today needs more genuine, credible experts and leaders to stand up and share their experience, their wisdom, their stories and ideas. Are you in?